getting my audio set up. Oh, yeah. Here we go. What's up, chat? How's it going? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting frickin' tactical, my dudes. And let's talk about some, like, friggin' 10th edition. I thought Inky's here. She's making her presence known. Please don't scratch my chair, Inky. I thought it would be cool today to talk about the faction articles. Get up here. Come say hi to chat, girl. I guess we can go into the camera. I thought it would be cool to talk about the faction articles. What we can do is go through the ones that have been released so far and give a little tier list of them. But also, if we want to, we could just keep going and prognosticate about the entire edition. Mostly for funsies. I'll probably have something more formal once all of the articles are revealed. But we're like halfway there, right? So like we can get a pretty good idea. So yeah, I think we can dive right in. There's a lot unknown about all of these, obviously. And I think that it's going to be, I don't know, kind of interesting just to talk about it and speculate a little bit about what they could bring. How about them Custodes? Yeah, I'd like to see Custodes. So one thing I realized I did not do is I did not bring to the front here all of the articles that we've gotten. So we have Space Marines, we have Tyranids, we have Chaos Space Marines. Boom, there's those guys. We have Astra Militarum. They're already there. Thank you. Welcome to the team. Necrons, get out of here. Chaos Knights, we don't need you. Chaos Demons, Sisters of Batel, Leagues of Votann, there you are. World Eaters. Oh no, I don't have a World Eaters chat. I forgot. This is an old tier list, and World Eaters didn't exist as a faction the last time I did one. Whoopsies. Should we add one real quick? I can edit this. Let's go. Add World Eaters. We're doing it live. I did get this up a little bit late, by the way, chat. I was actually out just before this. And oh, everybody gets to look at, I'll just go to my face here. Everybody gets to look at my desktop. Amazing. I did, what am I trying to say? I was out running some errands, and I did get my car hit by a different car. So I was a little bit breathless running back in today. No damage, and fortunately it wasn't my fault. But it was annoying, and it did waste time. All right, World Eaters, where you at? Here we are. We'll get a big angry man in there. Let's go! All right, World Eaters are on the list now. Oh, no, but I have to reset everything. What have I done? Chat, this is terrible. Okay, I'm not even going to worry about this. We're just going to go down the line. My car made the invuln save. It was an armor save, actually. My bumper rebounded it. Fortunately, there was no mystical stuff going on. We are doing it live. Yeah, my neck might hurt. Yeah. I hit the steering wheel, I swear. Nobody was there to see it, but I'm sure it happened. I got like a little drip of ketchup down here. I'm like, look I broke my nose. Terrible. Yeah, it's just annoying. Just really obnoxious, so. That's how my day's going. Hope everybody else is having a good one, chat, by the way. Everybody play some games this weekend? We got a couple games in. We had an impromptu T5S2 stream on Sunday. That was a fun one, just mostly talking about 9th edition and hanging out with the chat. That was a good one. We had a pretty sweet game on stream yesterday, too. I am going to be live tomorrow and Thursday over on the Twitch. Not sure about Friday yet, but we'll certainly have things. Should be 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time tomorrow and Thursday. So please go give me a follow up there and come hang out with me. All right. Let's dive in. I should be doing a best drip tier list. I am going to do something like that by coming up soon, chat. So don't you worry. We got a lot scheduled for the channel. It's going to be good. Boarding actions, really good. I did get really hyped for boarding actions when it was announced, but I've literally still never played a game of boarding actions, which I feel like it's a betrayal. I don't know. I feel like I should have played boarding actions at least once, but I just haven't done it. It's a little daunting to like want to learn an entirely new system, but it is what it is. All right, should we dive in? Little 1000 incursion, Obsec monster versus Tau, stomp 70-35. Yeah, Tau. I think they need to get Inky. Inky, come here, come visit and say hi to chat. Inky, come on up. This cat. Are you coming? No, she's gonna walk away. Well, I'm sorry, everyone. Yeah, I think Tau need like a critical mass of firepower to get to. They need to get to the point where they can, reliably kill one thing that they choose like every turn. And at 1,000 points, sometimes they're just a little too inconsistent, unfortunately. So it is what it is. Tau needs to get Inky. Yeah, Inky would be so strong. She's like a Warhound Titan, but it's a cat, so it's like a war. I don't know, kitty Titan. But it's big and just knocks everything over. If you roll to wound Inky, she just doesn't even take the damage. She doesn't even understand the concept of being wounded. So she's too strong. She's too powerful for a game of 40k. Inky does do it. What Inky pleases. Inky is, she is an unknowable Lovecraftian monster for sure. Cat, would you stop screaming at me? I just put the TV on for you just before we went to stream. Here, come up. Nope, she doesn't want to. Whatever. Okay. Let's dive in, chat. Let's do this thing. So, I'm going to go down. I have the faction focus list right here. Should we just go down the line of the list? I wonder if I can, like, add this as a little bit of an overlay. I bet I can. I bet if I go... Oh my god, Cat. I'm dying over here. Can you not? I don't know if you can hear her, chat. She's so loud. All right, here we go. We'll just put this in the corner so we can all keep track. How about up here? That's good. There's a space up here. Look at that. And let's put it not over on top of our overlay. All right. Ta-da! Perfect. That looks great. All right, we'll start with Space Marines. I'm feeling like Space Marines seem pretty great. They definitely, they aren't like the most exciting of all of the previews that we've gotten so far, but hot damn is Oaths of Moment incredibly strong. And their stratagem efficiency, they have this, this sub-theme of stratagem economy that's probably the best in the game. And I think that's going to be sweet. I would expect, everybody prepare yourselves for this. I would expect Space Marines to be comparatively more expensive than they are right now. It feels to me like they're being pushed as this low model count elite army that buffs up all their guys with stratagem. So their units are expensive, but they feel like you get more value than you do because you get all of these stratagems for free. So I think... I don't know if they feel, based on what we've seen so far, I don't know if they feel like they're just like this unbeatable god machine. They definitely feel like they're going to be meta warping because the effect of Oaths of Moment is going to be like insane in some matchups. You're going to have opponents that have super heavies or have like big tank units. They have like this big Death Star, and Space Marines are just like Oaths of Moment that every turn and just vaporize it. But I don't... Space Marines have typically been kind of inflexible, especially when it comes to maneuverability, and that always hurts them as the edition moves on. So I don't know if they feel like, as crazy as they might, for sure. So I don't know. They seem pretty solid, definitely. Once we do the ones that we should do completely blind predictions. We did talk about that. We'll see how much time we have after we talk about the ones that have already been spoiled. Go Deathwatch? Dude, I hope Deathwatch is sweet. That's an article I want to see. 40k never gets Deathwatch right, but it is what it is. Any chance their codex is worse than their index? No. That's another thing that I think people should really be preparing themselves for, is that we are going to go through an index period. So everyone's going to have an index for a month or two, and then codexes will start to release, and codexes will probably be the same, at least at the beginning of the indexes that came out. But it's going to take like a year or so for all of the codexes to cycle through. Maybe more than that, if they only do one per month. So some factions are going to be stuck with indexes for a long time, and codexes will probably get multiple detachments. So codexes will have like this vast flexibility over top of what indexes will get. And that's going to be a little bit of a problem for the people with index factions. I hope that the time frame is kind of rapid, so we don't get stuck in, 8th edition codex is in in 9th edition were brutal in some situations. In some cases, they made the transition well, but they were brutal in a lot of situations. And I don't want that to have like be the case for Astra Militarum, for example, as it was in 9th edition, where it was Astra Militarum players are sitting there for like 3 years waiting for a codex, and then they get it and they can't play it for 6 months because Games Workshop fucked up. It is what it is. If Space Marines aren't easy, nothing is. I don't know. I think Space Marines, for people who don't like main Space Marines really competitively, it has been the case in the past. 8th edition Space Marines, like 8th edition Space Marine Codex redo 2.0, notwithstanding, because that was unreasonably broken. You could play that with the blindfold. But Space Marines in the past, because their army is basically entirely like speed 6 or speed 12, like no advance and charge, no speed increases, maybe you deep strike. Space Marines have actually been like unironically difficult to play. And the times where they get really dumb is when their shooting is insane, or their mobile units are insane, or they have good indirect fire. And right now, their mobile units are really good and they have good indirect fire. We don't know if that's going to be the case in 9th edition. If it is, then Space Marines will be okay. But if the faction is focused around playing these like Terminator bricks and Intercessor bricks with captains in them, using rites of battle, getting all these stratagems going, then it is going to be a little bit tough, because playing Move 6 infantry is legitimately difficult, because you have to plan your moves so far ahead. And oftentimes, you're stuck like relying on these big charges to get yourself up the table. And it's really tough. So, I mean, it remains to be seen. If you like land speeder spam is really good, Space Marines would probably be amazing. But if it's not, then who knows? They get advance and charge once per game, right? It's not like huge. They're not this faction that's going to be like Eldar currently right now are just like super fast all the time, and they're not going to be that level of speed. So you're still going to have to prepare that ahead of time, and using your combat doctrines in the wrong instance is going to be tough. So we'll see. Here, certain factions are just going basic Space Marine Legions, Space Scars, etc. From as far as I know, outside of the Space Marine chapters that have their own codex, which will be a separate codex with entirely separate mechanics, as far as I know, any of the other Space Marine chapters will not have unique mechanics. They will maybe get special rules from characters, and characters may be exclusive, but sub-faction mechanics are going the way of the dodo. You only have detachment rules now. To what extent are Space Marines a noob trap? I don't think they're going to be a noob trap, but I think they're going to be. I think there's going to be like a lot of like this first order optimal play where the like combination of abilities is really easy. You're like target enemy with Oaths of Moment, buff with stratagem from Gilliman, roll dice. But to make the most use of that ability, you have to outmaneuver your opponent, which is difficult. So in situations where it's like two battle boxes fighting, Space Marines will probably be pretty good. But if your opponent is like good and plays lines of sight well and plays movement well, then Space Marines are much more difficult to play. That's usually how they end up after a couple of incarnations, for sure. Ultramarines are just going to be the best option because of Gilliman. I mean, Gilliman's already the best option, chat. That's not even different. You play Blood Angels with Gilliman. You play White Scars with Gilliman. I don't care. Play Iron Hands with Gilliman. That one's the worst one, but you can do it anyway. Play Imperial Fist with Gilliman. Just everybody gets Gilliman. That guy's in every Space Marine army already, so whatever. All right, let's move on. Next one down the list, Tyranids. We think meh or bad? They're definitely, based on what's been spoiled, they're like somewhere in here. I feel like I have enough of a bias that someone in the comment section is going to be like, oh, God, if he puts Tyranids down in the bad section, I'm never watching a video again. Because he's always, TacticalTortoise is always so hard on Tyranids because they're his favorite faction. And it's true. I think that the Battle Shock mechanics are going to be good when they're good. But it feels like to me that Tyranids, I don't know. I don't know if a once per game Battle Shock that you get a buff for a Neurotyrant having is okay. Their detachment roll is great, especially because I think some factions are going to lean into vehicle heavy, and some factions are going to lean into infantry heavy. For example, it seems like Adepta Sororitas is probably going to be like just taking a bunch of infantry. They want to have their retributor squads. They want to lose some models. They want to get those +1 to hits. They want to like be return fire shooting at people, taking a bunch of infantry. Ironically, Adeptus Mechanicus seem kind of infantry focused. Whereas, Aeldari, we just saw the preview today, probably a ton of tanks or in vehicles and stuff. And Tyranids being able to adapt themselves to be better against one or the other is actually super sick. So their detachment rule is great. Getting lethal hits against every vehicle and monster on the table is like, whoa. Especially because, little known fact, that Tyranid faction ability works on any attack. Doesn't matter, psychic attacks, melee attacks, ranged attacks, any single one. You get sustained hits against infantry, lethal hits against enemies, boom, done. So the detachment roll is legitimately good. Shadow in the Warp, I don't know. Your opponent just roll out of it. It's just a corn flip. You don't even know if you're going to disrupt scoring or anything. They do get the Swarm Lord abilities and stuff. We can click on their article. We can get a little bit of a little peek at the article here on the top corner. They get the Synapse. They get the Shadow. The Gene Stealer profile is really good, actually. 2 wounds on Gene Stealers. 2 wounds. Full rerolls to wound on objective markers. Oh, my God. Are you kidding me? Swarm Lord. Support abilities are great. And melee, he's garbage. But his support abilities are amazing. His psychic power is a Flamer, which is kind of sweet. It automatically hits. So I think I'm solidly... I don't know. We need to see more of Tyranids. I don't think they're great, but they seem kind of mid, I guess. Demons heal from Tyranids? I mean, yeah, but I think that interaction's overblown, to be honest. I think that'll... Outside of the Votann detachment rule, or the Adeptus Mechanicus detachment rule, just doing nothing to Necrons, that's legitimately funny. But I think that a lot of the interactions between the army abilities that you're like, oh, this is garbage, it's not going to do anything, I actually think that it secretly will. Because here's the secret technology, chat. And I don't think I didn't talk about this in any of the videos, but Shadow in the Warp is either player's command phase, and the Shadow of Chaos locks in, and I'm going to double check that I have this timing right by looking at the article. Shadow of Chaos for Chaos Demons locks in at the start of each phase. So Demons, it's unlikely that Demons play a hyper defensive game plan, right? So Demons are going to be coming at you. Shadow in the Warp can be triggered any command phase in the entirety of the game. So all you have to do as the Tyranid player is get yourself into a position where you contest the majority of the objectives in no man's land, so that your Shadow in the Warp projects, as long as Be'lakor is not like in an annoying place and projecting Shadow in the Warp everywhere, or Shadow of Chaos, excuse me. There's so many shadows. It's too shady here on this table between these two hypothetical matches. If you take, by the end of the Tyranid player's turn, if you take, call it, I don't know how many objectives there will be, but if you take 2 out of the 3 objectives that are in no man's land, the Shadow of Chaos, I almost did it again. The Shadow of Chaos retracts back to the demon player's deployment zone. If the majority of their units are not wholly within, is it wholly within? Within their deployment zone? I forget. Within your army's Shadow of Chaos. So if the majority of their army is not within their deployment zone, you can trigger Shadow in the Warp immediately at the start of their turn. And none of those models get Shadow of Chaos unless they're in their own deployment zone. So I think most of the time you're going to be wanting to trigger it on opponents' turns anyway, because it's going to prevent them from scoring objectives. So that's probably the optimal timing regardless. And as long as you play aggressively like into the demon army and push their Shadow back 1 turn, then you can try to battle shock their whole army. Be'lakor like throws the... And if they corrupt any objectives, then they like throw the wrench in the monkey wrench in the game plan. But there's counterplay to it. And you could also, if you're that worried about it, just not trigger Shadow in the Warp. It's not great. It's not a good idea, but like it sucks to not have a faction ability. But it's not like it, you know, you automatically lose if you play that matchup. That's what I have to say about that, by the way. So I'll put Tyranids at meh. I don't know if we'll have enough like factions because we only have half the articles to get like a nice bell curve going here, but they might end up being like down at the bottom, but who knows? I don't know. Who's next on the list? Chaos Space Marines. There's so much shade being thrown there. Indeed, chat. Absolutely. We were getting real shady. We were fighting at the Battle of Thermopylae there, and we were fighting in the shade. Tyranids are going to be basically impossible to run away. Yeah, for sure. I think the most hilarious matchup is going to be the Tyranid mirror match. More than that Demons matchup, because the Tyranid, like there's two Neurotyrants on each side just staring at each other, and both of them are putting half their army in Synapse, like by themselves, and so and so these two Tyranid players are like trying to make themselves roll 3d6 -1 leadership checks and like beat like a 7 or whatever, and it's not gonna go well. That is a mirror match that's legitimately funny. Which, if we go back to the 8th edition mechanics, that's how Tyranids used to go. Tyranid, Shadow in the Warp, didn't do anything to other Tyranids. It only affected non-Tyranid enemies, which was very... it never came up very often, but every once in a while you hit a Gene Stealer matchup, Gene Stealer Call matchup, and you would have to keep that one in mind, which is funny. All right, let's go. Let's see. Chaos Space Marines is next. So Chaos Space Marines have their super sick ability to demonic pact themselves, to dark pact themselves. But if I remember correctly, we did not get a detachment ability for them. We only know their army ability, which is sad. So we don't have as much of an idea of Chaos Space Marines as I think we want to. Based on the previews, though, Abaddon seems like an absolute house. He's like a tanky character by himself, but then he's also inside a huge Terminator unit probably, and he's like an absolute nightmare. Plus, he generates UCP almost automatically, and he has a bunch of support effects. That dude is absolutely nuts. Then they have the stratagem, and we don't know what it does, so that's good. I think Chaos Space Marines, I would put them in probably fine. Legionnaires seem great. They seem fine, I guess. I don't know if I'd say great. Abaddon seems great, and their army ability is great, but I don't know if their detachment ability is good. So I don't know. I don't have much else to say about that, I think. Chaos Space Marines, no detachment abilities. They don't have detachment abilities. Also, the only units you can take in Chaos Space Marines, Abaddon and Legionnaires. Garbage army. They don't even have any tanks. How are they going to kill a Baneblade, chat? I guess that, yeah, the other way to put it, chat, is that they do look good, and we haven't even seen their detachment ability. That's also not an unfair point. They kind of look good in spite of lacking a detachment ability currently, which could put them up in the higher tier. Do we think we put them up here, chat? I think we maybe put them up there. I'll take that. Yeah. Let's do it. I'm into it. All right, moving on. That was, unfortunately, Chaos Space Marines. We don't have much else to talk about for you, so it is what it is. I will reposition some of these little friends over here. There we are. Next up is Necrons. How are we feeling about Necrons, chat? They feel kind of like meh tier. They're +1 to hit on, like, theoretically, I think, based on, assuming that, like, what is implied by the faction abilities is correct, is that they're basically +1 to hit faction-wide on any of their infantry because it seems like their infantry is going to be highly incentivized to have leaders attached to it. I also wonder if there's not like Silent King, like I would be shocked if like Silent King doesn't have an aura that considers you to be led. So he just like turns on command protocols for everything around him or something. That wouldn't shock me. Then they also have the regeneration effect, which is okay. And monoliths seem fine. But nothing that was previewed for them is like exciting. And especially compared, and I guess Doomsday Arcs were exciting. The Doomsday Arc profile is really sweet. When ranking Necrons, we count probable changes to drawing line of sight and removing models. Yes, we should, for sure. This is based on what we know right now at the time. And currently, right now, it's heavily implied that you can't kill models that are not within your line of sight unless you have an indirect fire weapon. So, it actually is probably that Necron Warrior bricks are functionally immortal. Although, interestingly, I don't know. It might be that we see, like, map design get really intricate, where suddenly, like, no objectives are like out of line of sight, so you can shoot people off objectives, and that will force Necron Warrior bricks to pull off objectives, and then they won't get to reanimate their big reanimation numbers. I guess if that's the case, and it's very outside melee, it's very difficult to wipe a warrior brick. They're probably like up here, right? Does that feel better? The Doomsday is real good for sure. Yeah. Monoliths seem great for sure. It's 7+ leadership, but like asterisk. It's 7+ leadership, but you're supposed to attach a leader, and leaders are generally higher leadership than the unit. Or it's like a coin flip. Sometimes they're higher leadership than the unit. But if an overlord isn't like 6+ or 5+ leadership, I would be shocked. I think that it's implied that there aren't actually 7+ leadership for sure. Seems like chat's in on fine. All right, I'll go with fine. Fine seems okay. I know I talked about it in the video that I did when the Necron article came out, but the problem that I had with Necrons is mostly that and this is, once we get to the, I mean, if you watched my video about the AdMech article last night, then you probably know my feelings on it. But the AdMech article was a really good example of the articles like done well, because they previewed a bunch of abilities, and then they previewed interactions with those abilities. The problem with the Necron article, and the reason that I was so critical of it in the video that I made, was that they previewed the abilities, and then they didn't preview any synergy. They were like, here are some abilities they have, and you're like, okay, how do you trigger them, though? How do you use those abilities? Oh, hey, there's a cat. What's up, girl? You gonna come visit? Come say hi to chat. Oh, you're caught in my headphones. Look. Look at this kitty. Say hi to chat, kitty. The monolith is towering? Yeah, but so towering is now, it's a trade-off. It's not a debuff, because it also allows you to ignore ruins for line of sight, or at least the ruin obscuring rule. There's also the fact that monoliths are basically, we could just pull up their datasheet in the corner here. Monoliths are basically not going to be attacked on the first turn because they could just deep strike. They have deep strike on their profile. I guess that's, oh, I'm not on the correct page, sorry. Oh, that's so small. Just kidding. This is not a great idea. They just deep strike in their core abilities. So I think the play pattern is going to be, because the timing for the Eternity Gate is anytime during your reinforcement step, the play pattern is that you have a Necron Warrior unit that's sitting on your backline so nobody can ever shoot it. You deep strike a monolith from reserve, and then you just pick up a warrior unit and put it right next to your opponent. It's wholly within 6 inches of the model and not in engagement range of enemies. So you can, if you can deploy a monolith 5.9 inches away from an objective, you can put Necron Warriors on that objective, which is like wild. And there's nothing your opponent can do about it. They have to screen the monolith. Plus, then it shoots, you know, maybe Death Rays like to do 100 million damage because they're a D6+1 weapon with sustained D3. So they do from anywhere from 1 to 28 damage. Who knows? Or 2, I guess. They can also be used to bring stuff from reserve. Yeah, for sure. That is correct. Will net monoliths get the same hiding rules as Baneblade, like where they grant cover? No, that would have been in their on their data sheet. Towering, I mean, you can always be seen. So towering means that, at least based on what we know, that ruins do not automatically block line of sight to you or from you. We don't know if it's true line of sight yet, so it might be that, like, you can see and be seen through a window, but it works both ways. So knights and stuff are no longer going to be like, you don't play this game where you have, like, a dude who's standing slightly behind a window and shooting a knight, and the knight has no idea what's happening. If you shoot the knight's going to shoot you back. That doesn't work one way anymore. It's like a Veil of Darkness, but better? Yeah, for sure. No chance Necrons are better than Nids? I don't know. I don't know if we can say that for sure. The Tyranids are... Well, we haven't seen enough Tyranid profiles to really tell how much damage they do, but, like... I mean, that monolith is kind of a house. If the monolith can source rerolls to hit, it's going to be a nightmare. Because you can reroll its sustained hits into multiple hits. The indirect roll is as good as confirms true line of sight? I don't believe that's the case. So all of the line of sight rolls we've said so far have just mentioned visibility. They haven't mentioned drawing, like, true line of sight is specifically drawing a line from your model to your opponent's model. And none of the rules that we've had so far have said anything about that. Yeah, the toughness 14 of the model is a big deal too. For sure. It's, especially once you start to consider, like, what your average damage against them is, it doesn't feel quite as good as you think. Because you're like, well, I have a bunch of las cannons will shoot it, and you're like, well, las cannons are winning on 5, so without rerolls, they basically don't need, like, really scratch the paint. And then it saves on 5s, so it's like, you know, whatever, a 10% chance that las cannon actually converts. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Towering is I'm a little confused about, like, worrying about the towering roll. Towering is just a buff to the units that were already 18 plus wounds. So, like, because those units were already not benefiting from obscuring, now nothing else benefits from obscuring for them. They also can shoot through walls now. Like, it's a big deal. Not to mention the fact that a lot of stuff that now actually gets benefited from obscuring, so it's huge. Yeah, I think we've only seen a couple of anti-tank weapons that actually scratch toughness 14 reliably. That fire prism's one of them, though. That fire prism, that's gonna do a number on this poor monolith. Oh, goodbye, Inky. She's done. She's done with us talking about Necrons, and we should be too, because it should be time to move to the next article. All right, who we talk about next? We have moved on Necrons. It's time for Astra Militarum. Astra Militarum. So we saw their army ability was Orders, which is good. You get +1 to hit basically on your, like, half your army pretty easily. The army ability is Born Soldiers, and there's an enhancement to Born Soldiers to make it work on 5. So as long as you're stationary, you get lethal hits. But I don't, like, stationary is a big deal. I don't know how often that comes up, to be honest. Restricting Born Soldiers to only stationary units is, like, kind of a huge deal. I think that the big point is that, like, indirect fire artillery and stuff is going to be huge, because they're always stationary and they're going to get the wounding on 5s. So, depending on how that ability works, though, we also don't exactly know how that ability works. So, who knows? We think we put them in 5 and fine. I do think that they're probably above Necrons. At least based on what we've seen, the rules are more consistent than Necrons. And that Baneblade rule where it gives things cover is so cool. I think they get a bump up over the other factions just because of how cool that Baneblade ability is. It's so sick. They might have abilities that make them count as stationary. I bet, yeah, maybe we see like Leman Russ get like a grinding advance or something back, where they move half and then count as stationary, so then they get all their benefits. You'll get the stationary buff on all your Overwatch. Do you? Is it just models that haven't moved this turn? What did they say in the article? Unfortunately, they didn't actually spoil the rule. Confers lethal hits on ranged attacks made by units that remained stationary. I actually don't think that you will, chat. If I would hazard to guess, just based on the wording in the article, it would say, I imagine that it says, ranged attacks performed by units that remain stationary this turn get lethal hits. You don't remain stationary on your opponent's turn, you just don't move. It's different than the old 8th edition rules that are like, if this unit didn't move this turn, remaining stationary is a specific type of movement that you elect to do when you go to move. I have a sneaking suspicion that it won't work on opponent's turns. But if it does, that's great. I think the big use case is going to be artillery for sure. It's not that units that didn't move that turn. It's units that specifically remain stationary. So you have to be chosen to move, and when you're chosen to move, you have 3 things you can do. You can move, advance, or remain stationary. You have to then choose to remain stationary, then you get the benefit. Guard will have a tough time taking objectives. Maybe. But they're also, they also don't have to throw units on objectives as much anymore, because they can shock troopers their backline and then just leave. Plus, if models behind line of sight blockers can't be killed, then you can, run 2 dudes on an objective to contest it or whatever, lose those couple guys, and then run the rest of the squad on later. Not to mention the fact that those infantry squads, you can take up to 26 models in them, potentially more. Those things are going to be huge. You might just be able to pipe that unit onto an objective for permanently for the entire game. And if they're big, then it's harder to battle shock them too. Yeah, I guess I should preference the remain stationary discussion by saying that, there could be addendums, and Games Workshop's current remain stationary rules are kind of like a nightmarish hodgepodge of 8th edition and 9th edition rules, jammed together in kind of bad ways. But that is, to my reading, that's how it looks to me. I obviously could be wrong because we don't actually see the full rules, but that's what I imagine will happen. Oh, yeah, that's true. Their Sentinels can come back, too. How did I forget that? Of course. You can bring back, what is it? Any regiment unit with the reinforcement strat? It's not the tanks. Yeah, regiment units. The tanks can't, or at least the tank that we've seen, the Baneblade can't do it because it's not regiment keyworded. I would be surprised if Leman Russ and stuff were, but at least in the current edition, the Sentinels are, so they can come back for sure. All right. I'm good with fine for now, chat. I could see them bump up to good here. Are they going to be better than Chaos Space Marines? I don't know. We'll see. Reduction in damage from the army is a big deal. Because unless they have all the buffs everywhere, their accuracy is kind of low and their weapon strength doesn't look that amazing. But I don't know. It could be good. Who knows? We'll move on. We covered Militarum. We got Chaos Demons next. Let's go, Chaos Demons. I think Chaos Demons are gonna be nuts. If I had to guess, They benefit when you kill them. They can demonic manifest like within their shadow, so they can drop in. Be'lakor looks like an absolute nightmare. Like Be'lakor himself, like feels like of the faction leader characters we've seen so far, Be'lakor unironically seems like the best one. Just the ability to prevent ranged attacks is like ludicrous. And it's stringable. His Wreathed in Shadows ability is just units within 6 inches, not wholly within. So you can put one model within 6 inches and then trail the rest of the unit back, and none of them can be shot. If you're not within 18. So if you have like 10 Demonettes or whatever, they're towing a back objective and they're trailed up to Be'lakor, who's in like the middle of the table. You have to be like 5 inches away from Be'lakor to shoot them. Is that right? No. 7 inches away from Be'lakor. Because Bellacor's a 5-inch base plus a 6-inch aura to the Demonette. So you have to be 7 inches away. That's 9. No, that's 11. You have to be 18 inches. Yeah. So you have to be like super close to Be'lakor. And then if you are, he just kills you. He has a sweet gun. Yeah, I don't know. Demon seems sweet. I'm less enthused about that Keeper of Secrets profile. It's like really tanky, but melee is kind of whatever. So we'll see what else they do, but Be'lakor himself is sweet. Scarbrand's attacks are flat 6 damage. That's awesome. I don't know. Demons look better than Space Marines? Yeah, maybe. Demon Army maxing on the Graders is going to be light? Yeah, for sure. Clearly best faction previewed. That might be the case. I think Demons are great. Should we put them in the top tier, chat? A Baneblade is going to Overwatch as soon as he walks in at 18 and take 10 wounds off? I mean, maybe. Depends on... I mean, there's a lot of mechanics in there. We actually have to know what they do. He has Stealth. What does that do? Nobody knows. He has a whole defensive ability on his datasheet. We don't know what it does yet. It probably gives you cover. But, I don't know. Who knows? Oh, best faction is Aeldar? Actually, that's probably true. Yeah, actually. I'll agree with that. I'm going to put Demons at the top here. Probably bottom of the top. Maybe here. But we don't have anything at the top yet, so we're going to go. Eric Dobbs, thanks for the sponsorship, by the way. Appreciate you. They may lack range. But they can't be, like, you can't shoot them on the first turn. Their Graders can be obscured now by Ruins. So they're actually much tougher to shoot than they were. If True Line of Sight's gone, which we don't really know, but if True Line of Sight's gone, then those big demon models are actually like so much easier to hide. It's crazy. Well, Be'lakor actually got a better armor save. If we look at his datasheet here, he actually gained a 4+ armor save in addition to his invulnerable. So if he gains cover, he goes down to a 3+ save. So against AP 0, like high volume AP 0, he's actually kind of survivable if it gets him cover. He doesn't have any of the keywords that prevent him from getting cover by like hiding behind buildings or whatever, the stuff that gives vehicles cover, hills, I guess. So he might have other ways to get it too. But his base save improved, so which might be an indicator that he got some ability that translates with it, because the Keeper of Secrets didn't. So I don't know. I think it's cover. Stealth is your opponents have to close your eyes. You have like one of those. Does anybody remember there was like a rash of games back in the day where one of the core mechanics was that it was like secret deployment, and you and your opponent didn't know where each other deployed. So they were like, they would always have things where like you have to put a box like in front of your deployment zone or like a sheet or something. It was like nightmarish. It was so silly. Stealth is probably can't shoot within 18. If Stealth just gave Be'lakor his own ability, like his Shadows ability permanently, that would be nuts. There's Stealth. There's Stealth elsewhere. I don't know. That would be an insanely good ability. All right, who's next? Keeper Seeker's uninspiring. Yeah, it doesn't kill a Rhino, but it sure kills like a billion Terminators, though. So I think that they're gonna very carefully put all the give the Greater Demons a role. Like the Lord of Change will be a big gun, probably. The Bloodthirster will be the dude who kills big vehicles, and the Keeper of Secrets will be the person who kills several infantry. I imagine that's how it's gonna work out. -1 to hit outside 12 inches for stealth. That would be good. Maybe stealth is just -1 to be hit with ranged attacks. That'd be good. That'd be pretty sweet. All right. Who's next? Adepta Sororitas. That's a tough one. So Sisters is gonna be tough. So obviously, Acts of Faith are like pretty sweet. Exorcists are cool, but I know the generally people are less enthused about the Exorcist missile launcher because it's kind of spiky. I think it's good, but who knows? Sisters, I don't know. Where are we feeling about Sisters, chat? Sisters might be a meh kind of faction. Until we see more, a faction that relies on multi-meltas that were like dramatically debuffed is kind of a big deal. They do have their return fire effects, but it depends on how many Sisters like survive a gunshot, which could be awkward. A 3+ save isn't quite as good as it was because you don't go down to a 2+ save from cover anymore. A 3+ save might actually be like the worst saving characteristic now because you don't get as much of a benefit from cover, and you probably pay Elder Resilience for it. Sisters better than Necrons. Better than Necrons. I'm feeling a little meh on Sisters, chat. Somebody talk me out of meh. They get a good detachment ability from losing models. But unless like Hospitalers are nuts, losing models is kind of crappy for them because they lose their damage output pretty quickly. It's not a resilient faction. If you can't kill models out of line of sight, and has Hospitalers work like they do now, Retributors are actually going to be insane because you can't wipe the Retributor unit and then the Hospitaler brings it back. But I have to imagine it doesn't work that way. Sisters Necron's close. All right, I'm putting them in meh, chat. I'm locking it in. Oop. Probably we're better than Tyranids, though. Are they better than Tyranids? Probably. At least their abilities seem more cohesive than Tyranids. Tyranids kind of are confused in what they're doing. But Sisters, like, they want to lose models. They want to lose units to gain Miracle Dice. When they lose models from those units, they get +1 to hit. And then they can all buff that with, like, the Triumph of St. Catherine. So, like, at least they're doing stuff. Tyranids are kind of, like, I don't know. Just being bugs. Detachment roll doesn't synergize well with them being a low to mid durability army. Well, maybe. But it does synergize well. I guess here's some things to think about, right? It disincentivizes your opponent from overwatching you pre-charge phase. Or actually at all, really. Because if they overwatch you and they kill 2 models, then you're like, this is the greatest thing ever. I've lost 2 Boulder Sisters and gained +1 to hit my entire unit. Amazing. So there's like a lot of situations where I think reactive effects, Sisters like are too pious for reactive effects. They don't even care about them. And I had another point that I've since forgotten. So I guess, yeah, the Miracle Dice economy is really good. They do get 1 billion Miracle Dice. Tyranids should go to bad. We do have nothing in bad, and I'm actually kind of struggling to think of what actually goes in bad. So we'll put Tyranids down at the bottom. I'll agree to that, chat. I'll acquiesce. So you get against the rad bombardment? Yeah. Taking D3 mortal wounds on your entire army of 1 wound models is kind of shitty, though. You get +1 to hit on your whole army, but you lose like 18 models. So, I don't know. How are sisters supposed to remove enemy armor? Did you read The Exorcist? You just shoot him from out of line of sight. All right, let's move on. We'll lock in sisters there. We'll decide if we change our minds later, but I think they're in there. Votann may be bad. Screamer Killer dropping 5 Terminators at a time. Yeah, the move 8 Screamer Killer that probably can't go through walls. Good luck getting that thing in melee without getting killed by a laser beam. A heavy laser destroyer shooting like 1,000 damage or whatever. D6 + 6 or whatever it is. Rip. All right. Let's go. These next one. Boom. Is Leagues of Votann. Mixed thoughts about Leagues of Votann. I think as spoiled, they're not very good, right? I think we can all agree. I have the Ancestors, pretty whatever. There's probably going to be ways to put additional judgment tokens down beyond just the detachment roll that gives you a bunch of them at the start. I like the detachment roll. I think the detachment roll is actually legitimately good. Because it gives you the choice. Like, if your opponent plays too aggressively turn 1 against them, then you just get to, like, windmill slam 2 judgment tokens on somebody and kill them for 3 VP, which is sweet. But getting judgment tokens elsewise, we need to see more ways to do it. The spoiled datasheets or whatever. Ballistic skill 4 and everything kind of sucks. And without knowing points values, I don't think it's like really difficult to determine where they're supposed to be. So I would put Leagues of Votann down to the bottom, right? There's also this. I want to address this too while we're talking about Leagues of Votann. I want to address. I see a lot of comments, and I see you guys putting these comments down here on all the Votann videos. You're all like, haha, Votann finally put in their place. Finally, they've been made bad. I saw somebody who like referred to like Votann players as meta chasers. I was like, what? Have you been paying attention? Votann have been thoroughly mid for like almost since they were released. Their release codex was really dumb for 12 hours, and then it got nerfed. And then they got several sets of successive nerfs. So like, I don't know where this idea that Votann are like this super toxic broken faction are. They're just very annoying, and I'll give you that. But they've never been like this thing where they're like impossible to beat. They kill like Timmy in 9th edition, I should say. They kill like Timmy archetypes really well, where you're playing like a bunch of big stuff. They're just like, well, here's some judgment tokens. Here's a bunch of guns. And that's like a big feels bad. But I don't think it makes Votann like the super busted army. They're like thoroughly mediocre for sure. Yeah, I don't think they're bad, by the way. I think that they're fine, and there are some terrain setups where they're very good, but it depends a ton on how well they do. It depends a ton on like a lot of factors that are out of the control of the Votann player, generally speaking. Yeah, I think there is like a general prejudice against shooting armies for sure. Definitely that is the case. Fortunately, Votann they haven't been around long enough to really like get the Tau syndrome where people are pulling on like a decade worth of experience getting killed by railguns, and they're like, I hate this faction, despite the fact that it's not very good right now and it's very inconsistent. They've only had that for a couple months, and even then they were kind of mediocre. Yeah, it was definitely. I think there's definitely a perception because they came out at a time when the game was really toxic. I'll agree with that. Serious Inc. for sure. That it was like release Tyranids being literally like insanely stupid. Release Eldar were like Release Eldar were dumb in so many different ways, because you could play, like, pure Harlequins were super busted. There were several pure Eldar subfactions and the archetypes that were super busted. There's a cute kitty now here, too. Let's see if the camera will pick up kitty. Kitty, come on the camera. Hello. You want to say hi to chat? Look at chat. Say hi to chat. Right there. Oh, she's a little shy. Votann has been a terrible experience. I'm sorry to hear that. People love that faction too, like conceptually. So it's sad to see, because I know a lot of Votann players are like really, I mean, they're into the aesthetic, they're into like the theme, and so it's like, you know, you're playing the like Deep Rock Galactic faction, and you just want to yell rock and stone and like carry a pickaxe around and like play with your fun moon buggies, and everyone's like complaining about it, and I don't know, it feels bad. You know, I just like, you see people with these like gorgeous Votann armies that are converted out of like other stuff, or like Caradron overlords and entire like models, you know, different ranges and things like that, and people are like just complaining about their army. I'm like, come on, man, that's not cool. That was not even that good. If it was a really good army, I'd complain about it, but it is what it is. Secondaries keep them down? Yeah, I mean, that's also the case for just Arcs of Omen. Like, you could just gesture broadly at most of 9th edition 40k and say, like, oh, it turns out the factions with the best secondaries, the most consistent secondaries, are the best ones in the game. Shocker. The ones who get, like, a 45-point bump over the other factions are, like, much better. All right, should we move off Votann, chat? I think we can all accept it there as depicted right now. Not very good. They are really elite in 9th edition, and I should hope that they become less so in 10th. If you can take like just hordes of Hearthkin warriors and they're just running at you and you get punished for killing them, like that's interesting and cool. But right now, they're just like expensive and elite and whatever. All right, let's move on. Who's next? We did Votann. World Eaters! So, World Eaters, I don't know. They felt like a failure to me on a conceptual level, but I think the faction's actually really good. Their faction ability is kind of dumb. Just roll a bunch of dice, get abilities. But the ability itself is, like, the effect of the ability itself is really, really good. At minimum, the worst case scenario... Oh, cat has gotten my... headphone. No, card. No, give me back. Inky, what are you doing? Ah, it's all tangled in your legs. Oh, I guess I just exist like this now. Can't turn my head too far, I guess. At minimum, you get +2 move on your entire army. Or a 6-0 damage ignore. But if you get lucky, like, at all, then suddenly you start to get all these, like, huge offensive benefits. So, I think the ability is super sick, and I think their ability to lock in objectives on a turn-to-turn basis is going to be, like, super dumb. This stratagem is insane. Basically, like, you get to tell your opponent that even if you shoot me off this objective for 1 CP, I'm going to hold it, and that's ludicrously strong. So, I think World Eaters are, like, solidly good. I don't know if they'll be as strong as the shooting factions, because it's definitely... you know, shooting does feel like it's going to be pretty solid in 9th edition, but like their ability to score and interact with the scenario seems really, really incredible. They have potential advance and charge, right? It's not automatic advance and charge. That's the toughest one to unlock, right? Outside of responding Angron. So they may have advance and charge. If they get advance and charge and +2 movement, they're just going to go absolutely insane. Yeah, Blood Tithe was like hyper flavorful for sure. Losing Blood Tithe is like a tragedy. That ability and honestly, here's the other thing about World Eaters. They were like they're the last 9th edition Codex, yeah. So the fact that they released this 9th edition codex that is in the style of 8th edition, like it's literally broken into detachments and has the same number of enhancements that they've told us we've had. And then they like immediately, like 2 months later, they just rewrite the entire thing and release it in 10th edition is wild. I was operating under the assumption that that codex would basically just transfer over without changing, and instead they're rewriting the entire thing, which is like insane to me. So crazy. Advance and charge is a 50-50. So it's probably advance and charge or 2 other things, right? The codex was dead on fluff and fun to play. Yeah. World Eaters are fun to play, and they're also pretty fun to play against. And maybe I say that because I play like a Combined Arms faction that has like a lot of answers to World Eaters, but like the mindset you have to adopt playing against a World Eaters army is just like you and your opponent just both look at each other and they're just like YOLO, and then you just run your armies of little men at each other and everything explodes and one of you comes out on top. It's like, it's really like turn your brain off, like have a good time 40k. World Eaters is probably, their secondaries might be like 1 iota too strong currently, but I think other than that, on terms of, they're like a huge win of a codex. They're like good, they're fun, they're consistent. Both you and your opponent are doing things. There's like rarely a situation where you're just like get destroyed by World Eaters because they don't shoot you to death. They charge you and then they like make you fight them. It's pretty cool. It's a 50% chance of +2 inches and advance in charge. Oh, fuck. Oh, wow. Oh, that's really good. That's going to be disgusting, actually, then. I might push that up a little bit. Is that really the case? It's a coin flip to get, like, +5.5 inches of threat range? We're going to we'll just push him up a little bit. We're going to give him an extra little thing. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Yeah, I think better than CSM. I could see that for sure. Yeah. Let's see. We got Adeptus Mechanicus. I'm actually hyped for Adeptus Mechanicus. I think that, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into their faction abilities. I do think that they're probably in the mech category. They're probably around here. Their abilities are really boring that they've showcased so far. Like, and I guess like that's kind of on theme for AdMech. AdMech like habitually are like just kind of the boring, like, I don't know, play like they put the punch card into their like punch card driven computer and just like run the program every game. And so I guess it's like if I was going to choose a faction to be kind of static and boring, I think Adeptus Mechanicus would be the most excited, like the one to pick. The problem is that that's not a particularly evocative playstyle, but I do think that AdMech does have strong abilities. Easy mode AdMech. Yeah, so the orbital bombardment thing that's what, like, it's so flashy, right? The rad bombardment. It's just like these abilities have never been that great. And I do think people aren't giving it enough credit. Battle shocking your opponent on the first turn of the game might be very relevant, depending on what missions look like. If they decide to take battle shock and not to take a bunch of damage. If they decide to take the damage, it's like their entire army suffers D3 mortal wounds, which is huge. Potentially. 2/3 of their army, I guess, that doesn't battle shock itself. The problem is that, I don't know. I kind of wish that it was maybe an automatic D3 or something. But it also depends on what missions look like. It depends on how relevant battle shocking yourself on the first turn is. Because if it means that you can't like hold objectives and you can't do a bunch of secondary missions, then it could be huge. But otherwise, it's not that great. I think the turn 2 onwards doing mortal wounds and stuff in your opponent's deployment zone is actually the more functional part. Because there's going to be a lot of situations. I mean, we were just talking about Sisters of Battle. I think that's a good example. I think I talked about this earlier. People were kind of like harping on the interaction. But if Sisters of Battle run 10 model battle or 5 model Battle Sister squads, then those Battle Sister squads are getting ripped apart by this. There's a reasonable chance that within 3, that by the top of 4, that Battle Sister squad is battle shocked by the fallout damage. And if they take the bombardment damage, which I think they want to, because if they battle shock themselves, they don't generate miracle dice from, or I guess if they battle shock everything holding their home objectives, then they don't generate miracle dice from Defenders of Faith, then they take D3 mortal wounds, and then also the fallout damage later. So that unit is actually battle shocked really early. And if you start to battle shock people's utility units, then they lose backline objectives really fast. So I don't think it's like, I don't think it's great, and I don't think it's exciting, but I do think that it's worthwhile. Plus, if it forces your opponent to play aggressively into like a big gun line, and everyone runs out in the open, and the gun line shoots you. I think also the battle line, the units that they previewed are super sick. The Skitarii Vanguards, rad saturation's like insane. They basically have 9th edition objective secured, where if you don't kill them off an objective, they take the objective from you, because it's so difficult to take an objective from an OC2 unit that reduces your OC by 1. I mean, like, they're better than OC3, right? Essentially. Plus, given the fact that they can affect more models than, like, are present, that ability is ludicrously strong. And I think the saving grace is that the Vanguard aren't that hard to kill. But if you can't kill them all off an objective, it's like impossible to take the objective away. They're the battle line plus like unit ability synergy is really cool. Those Sicarian Ruststalkers have like a super duper long threat range if you give them the advance and charge ability. Belisarius Call is kind of whatever, but he's kind of a, I don't know, his gun's good, I guess. The army roll doesn't help any melee units. Yeah, but they're like a gunline army. I don't. They always said AdMech has had like a sub theme of having melee, like sort of melee units attached to them, but the majority of damage from Adeptus Mechanicus has been guns. It's only recently that like the 30 Sicarian builds, I guess recently, like being within the last year, like year and a half, that these big Sicarian builds are the mainstay. Usually Sicarians were like you know, they were there to support the Skitarii bricks and the vehicles. They weren't there as the main point of the army. So I think it is what it is. I think they're going to move back to being a majority gun line, but they also have a set thing of being able to punch you pretty okay. Yeah, the Conquer Imperative +1 AP. It would be cool if that was +1 AP on any attack, not just ranged attacks. And I don't even know if that would be super strong. We would have to see. But that ability itself is super sick. It's units within your opponent's deployment zone, not wholly within. So as long as any part of them is within the deployment zone, your entire army gets +1 AP against them, which is like sort of insane. And you know, you're already ignoring cover on the Skitarii because they have the Omnispecs thing, and you know, AP values are generally reducing across the board. So getting like AP2 or AP3 on like the majority of your army is like sort of a big deal in the comparison. Stygie's Infiltrate Rush was a build for a long time. Yeah, but it wasn't like all Electro Priests, right? There were usually like 2 to 3 melee units, and then all of the rest of the army was shooting. In basically every AdMech build that's existed pre-Sicarians. Because you played like one Fulgurite unit and one like Sidonian Dragoon sometime, but then the rest was like, it was all Scorpius Dune Riders and Onager Dune Crawlers standing in the back. or Castellan robots. You saw like the 1Z2Z Castellan robot unit. It is kind of weird that the Skitarii have been reduced to the level of a guardsman. I will agree with that, chat. Conceptually, that's very strange. And I think, I mean, I honestly kind of appreciate that there's a little bit of a divorce between rules and lore, because it is likely that because of the defensive effects that Adeptus Mechanicus can get, having this like 4+ save, 3+ ballistic skill, Super Trooper as the baseline battle line infantry of the faction was way too good. Especially because you're supposed to take battle line infantry. It's the battle line matters faction, so they want you to take all this battle line infantry. So if they also make them super good at doing damage and super survivable, I think the faction gets like really degenerate very quickly, which is probably the problem. But if you're in Protector Imperative, they basically go to a 4+. They go to 4+ in cover, ignore 1 point of AP, so they're kind of a 3+ in Protector Imperative in cover. Or you can burn a CP to give them a 4+ in Vuln. So I don't think it's like this unit just vaporizes quickly. I think they have enough defensive effects that you can pile on Skitarii Vanguard. And we may see things like, was it like Radiant Mantle to give the Luminescent Blessing, whatever it was, like the transhuman to a unit. We may see like enhancements that go on Skitarii Marshals that go in the units. There could be a lot of stuff that makes them harder to kill that then explains the reduced armor save. It does feel weird conceptually that you have, like, what is the point of augmenting yourself with a bunch of bionics if the bionics don't improve your statistics at all? But it is what it is. I understand the complaint for sure. The anti-tank we see turned into strength 9 anti-elite gun. Yeah, I think that I wouldn't read too far into the what is it? The eradication beamer. That wasn't like really anti-tank in 9th edition. That was the option that they included in the kit to have an extra option, but it wasn't the one that was ever played. It was the laser or Icarus array game for those things. It's kind of a weird one to show off, honestly, because the eradication beam was always just like kind of whatever. It was like too spiky and too random for people, and so they just made it spikier. You're like, well, now I can do either, I can shoot 1 time hitting on a 4, or I can accidentally hit you 30 times. Or I guess like 24 if I roll just a ridiculous number of 6s. So it's going to be all over the place. Who knows? I wouldn't read too much into that. I'm sure neutron lasers will be great. I'm sure that plasma, like, the destroyer plasma culverin will be great. I'm sure that those will be going to be a lot of options in the faction for really good ranged attacks. Definitely. I'm sure that that big tank gun on the top of the Scorpius is going to be sweet too. The Scorpius. The disintegrator? Is it the disintegrator? And then it just takes the anti-tank gun? What is that gun called? The big anti-material gun. I forgot. That thing was never played, but it always looks kind of cool. I didn't like that it was off-set. It's like off-center on the stupid little turret. Yeah, the disintegrator takes it, and it's called the Ferromite Cannon. That thing will be good, I bet. Heavy 3, strength 8, AP 3 damage. Maybe it goes to 4 and gets like strength 10. That'd be okay. Arc dishing out 3 mortal wounds on vehicles is spicy. Yeah, I think the preview data, like the stuff that Vanguards have. I don't know if Vanguards are gonna be this like mainstay unit for the whole faction, where you're taking nothing but Skitarii Vanguard, but which is what they when the 9th edition Codex came out, that's definitely what you were doing, and it was very toxic. But on the flip side, I do think that Vanguard have the Vanguard unit that they've showcased is going to be super useful. Having at base a 3-shot anti-infantry 4-gun is sweet, and then also being able to upgrade with an anti-vehicle 4-gun as well is sweet too. Like the combination of those effects, plus you're able to give all of them assault in Conquer Imperative, so they actually get they get kind of mobile, so they can actually advance into rapid fire range with the arc rifles. Like that unit seems sweet, and it's not like the arc rifle doesn't do anything to infantry. It's strength 8. Like you want intercessors on 2s. Breachers with heavy arc rifles? Yeah, that might be good. We'll see. I think there's a lot of space in Adeptus Mechanicus. So I think that I don't think I would say that Adeptus Mechanicus are look like they're going to be like ridiculously insane. But I do think that they look like they're going to be playable, and I think that the inter-unit synergies that they showcase are really cool. So I'm just like happy with it. I don't know. It is it does, if you're an AdMech player, it does feel like a kick, like seeing your Vanguards go down to BS3 and stuff, but I don't think the sky's falling. All right. We got the last one, chat. I don't think that this one is particularly surprising. I think Eldar are the best that they've showcased. Maybe that's like a recency bias. I don't know, because they only showed them off this morning, but they have Miracle Dice, basically just like Sisters of Battle. They're just a Sisters of Battle army. Their detachment roll is ludicrous. Absolutely insane that they brought this roll back. The units that they showcased are okay. Guardian Defenders remaining at the same stat line that they had is kind of interesting, and getting better leadership. I imagine that we see like, Hearthkin Warriors, Qatari Vanguard, all these units that we saw drop in stats. I imagine that those go to more like a Horde Infantry style, and we see these Guardian Defenders at this like higher unit cost, so that they're supposed to be lower model count. How high cost? I don't know. We'll see, but I have to imagine that that's what we're gonna see. Yeah, just, the fact that they're going to have, like, this powerful anti-tank shooting plus just rerolls out the wazoo is going to be sort of insane. Demons don't have the equivalent of Master Artisan. Yeah, but Demons also don't care so much about the Master Artisan because they don't get attacked on the first turn. So, like, I don't know. You could put an entire Demon army in Bellicor's Aura. But also, like, I think that if we've got a nice distribution right now, right? We got a couple of extra stuff in good. Everything else is even. So I'm not gonna put Demons down just because they're not as good as Eldar. I think they're definitely not as good as Eldar based on what's been spoiled. But I think they are better than the other stuff that's been spoiled for sure. The only thing stronger than Eldar is family. Oh my god. Yeah, the Eldar article is like wild. You cannot Fate Dice a reroll, chat. That is, if I remember correctly, specified in the ability. Oops, excuse me. Or maybe it's the other way around. Yeah, it is before making a dice roll. So if they say that rerolls are dice rolls like they did previously, then maybe. But I think they FAQ'd that out of the current version. And then they said that the Fate Dice cannot be affected itself. You don't get to reroll.
Aeldari now the Emperor's chosen banana.
The Emperor's chosen banana. That's true. We'll see what Custodes do. They may have the same thing, honestly. I mean, Eldar literally recycled their detachment, their army roll from Sisters of Battle. So we could see an army roll similarly ticked over. GW did say that there would be less rerolls this edition. I think that quote is funny in context. I think that the specific quote was that they were talking in relation to characters. There would be like less character reroll auras. But they did say there would be less rerolls this edition, and that is proven to not entirely be the case, for sure. Yeah, the question about the Fate Dice chat is that in the current incarnation of the rolls, when you roll a die and then re-roll, the re-roll is a separate roll. So for a hot minute, you could re-roll and then sub in the Fate Dice for that roll. I think that's, to my remembrance, that's been FAQ'd out, but that is something you could do for a while. So it depends on how the rolls work currently. I don't believe that you can re-roll into a Fate Dice. If you could, that would be ludicrous, but I imagine it won't. If Custodians got a 3+ invul, nobody would play them? I mean, maybe. It seems like 3+ invulns... I imagine 3+ invulns are going to be less... less common, but I also think that it won't feel quite as bad as you think it will. Because AP values are also reduced, most of your shots are going to put them on a 3+ save anyway. So, if cover works how it does currently... A Custodians in cover is a 3+ against up to AP2, and since like 90% of the game is AP2 or lower, a 3+ invulnerable save I actually don't think would be that big of a deal on a unit with a high armor save. If you had a unit with no armor and a 3+ invulnerable save, that would be pretty good. But the fact that Custodians would go from 2 to 3 would be like, all right. I have a sneaking suspicion Custodians will get extra wounds. I won't be surprised if Custodians go to like T6, 4 wounds. 5 on the Terminators, 5 on the Shield guys. That would be my... if I had to put a bet down, I think that they would get the Terminator treatment for sure. If Custodians lose a 2+ save and get a 3+ invulnerable, that would be fine. Would that be fine? Custodians would just like die to bolt guns. I don't know if that's what you want. Suddenly like a Avenger Gatling cannon spools up and just like does dramatically more damage to Custodians than it ever did. I guess it already does because it has devastating wounds. Devastating wounds is gonna be disgusting against Custodians. They're gonna have super good saves and then like a random chain cannon's gonna shoot them for like 3 mortals. I think that, given that they removed demon saves from actual demons, I don't know if I would expect to see Custodians with unmodifiable saves for sure. Death Guard tomorrow is exciting. I'm crossing my fingers for a sweet army ability. I want Contagions to be super cool. That's what I want. Custodians need to deal with vehicles and anti-vehicle stuff. They do have their own vehicles, chat. Currently, they contain Contemptors and Land Raiders. And then they also have their entire list of Forge World. Cracking armor has never really been Custodian's problem. It has like situationally, but the fact that half their army is sporting like salvo launchers, and it hasn't been that big of a deal. Historically. All right, should we, before we wrap up here, chat, should we wildly prognosticate about the final factions? How we feeling? Jump in? Just, make some stuff up? Let's go. Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights are the same faction now, so they're going to be the same. And I bet they're going to be thoroughly mediocre. It seems like everything's anti-tank, and they're the tank faction, so like everybody's going to be kidding to beat them, so I bet they're going to be mediocre. Also, I don't know. There's like a lot of lethal wounds and stuff, and I think lethal wounds is going to rip them up. Custodians is next. Let's rip this band-aid off on Custodians, chat. I have a hot take. I bet Custodians are going to be terrible, because I think that the amount of well, there's been a high incidence of save bypassing attacks that have been spoiled so far. Space Marines get it for days. A Custodian wants nothing more than to not be shot by a chain cannon. And Space Marines are going to rock those things everywhere. So I bet Custodians are like, I don't think they're going to be bad. I think they're going to be whatever. Fine, I guess. I bet they're going to have, I think they're going to have 4 wounds. They're going to be a 2+ armor, 4+ invuln. I have a sneaking suspicion based on the cover, the terrain thing, that 2+ armor actually doesn't benefit from cover for the first... because cover is theoretically locked at a 3+, I bet you can't modify your save to better than a 2+ as a core roll. So 2+ armor saves won't get cover against AP1. So I think that they're gonna have more wounds, and their shield guys are gonna have more wounds because of the storm shield that we got spoiled previously. But I think that on their whole, they're actually gonna be like kind of easier to kill. They're gonna be easier to have damage dealt to them. I'll say that's my hot take. Well, it's not just 2 mortals from a gun. Unless Emperor's Auspice sticks around, which they have had so much trouble with in the past, I kind of think that it doesn't. If you Oath of Moment a Custodes unit and shoot that gun at them, it's like 1 billion damage. Right? That thing's like, you 12 dice full rerolling, so you get 2 mortals and a full reroll into 2 more. So you actually just kill a Custodian with mortal wounds. That seems pretty bad for them. Maybe they'll feel no pain to mortals. I don't know. We haven't seen that rule in the game anywhere, so who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if that goes away too, honestly. Kitty's having a yelling match. Death Guard. Let's put Death Guard in good. I believe. I want to believe, chat. I want to believe that their resilience effects are going to be ludicrous. Because that's always been the thing, is they keep getting stacked defenses every time. And if AP's low and they continue to be high wounds and feel no pains at the wazoo, feel no pains are going to be super strong. So I bet Death Guard are good. And I bet that the contagion mechanic is super sick. And I'm with pun intended. Let's go. Inky's having a mad, she's getting angry down here about something. All right, Drukhari. Oh my god, Cat, can you calm down? I think people in chat have been talking about it. Drukhari they probably get open top transports with assault ramps. I think anything that has easy access to open top assault ramp transports is going to be dumb, because those transports are going to be slightly harder to kill. Right now, Drukhari, can you see that on camera? What are you doing, Cat? Right now, Drukhari transports are they probably die to one thing shooting at them. But if they're 20% harder to kill, and now it takes 2 or 3 things to shoot at them and kill them, then you just don't kill Drukhari transports fast enough, and then they just lock you in your deployment zone, and then you are sad. And if they can get advance and charge, I guess they probably won't be able to move after they disembark. But Drukhari transports are super fast anyway, so they'll move 14 inches and then disembark and charge if you can't kill them, and I think that's going to be nuts. So I think Drukhari are going to be there, and I'm going to rip the bandit off orcs too. I think orcs are also going to be insane. We saw previewed that battle wagons hold 20 people and you can all shoot out the top, and I think that if this is a transport meta, orcs are going to have assault ramp transports, and their assault ramp transports are going to be amazing. So I'm also in on orcs. I bet orcs are going to be great. Thousand Suns and Grey Knights. Based on what we've seen so far, psychic powers are fucking trash. So I bet they're terrible. Throw them in the bottom. Get out of here. I bet they'll have some cool mechanics to interact with it, but I have no idea what this will look like. So, I don't know. Just worthless garbage. Roll a 2+. If you fail, you take D3 mortal wounds on every model in your army. So you just randomly, you're getting the AdMech rad bombardment on yourself every turn, just because of your army ability. That's the future I envision. They might be good, I don't know, but the psychic powers so far have been so bad that, who cares? All right, let's see. Gene Stealer Cult. if you can't kill full units and Gene Stealer Cult are out of line of sight, and Gene Stealer Cults are like Horde mode, they get those Strength 9 grenade launchers. I bet Gene Stealer Cult's going to be amazing. I bet Gene Stealer Cult's going to be so fucking lit. They're going to have, like, sick grenade launchers and big bricks of neophytes. You're going to put 20 neophytes behind a wall, and the 4 grenade launcher dudes and the 4, like, whatever, seismic cannon dudes are going to pop out, and they're going to vaporize you, and you're going to shoot back and you're going to kill them, and the Icon War is going to wave his flag, and all those guys are going to come back every turn. And you're going to pull your hair out. You're going to be like, how do I deal with this army? They're too strong! Yeah. Oh, rapid ingress, too, for Gene Stealer Cult? Yeah, I bet they're going to be great. I'm talking myself into Gene Stealer Cult being above Death Guard. I bet we put Death Guard down here. Gene Stealer Cult, goat. Let's go. Harlequins. I'm torn. Well, Harlequins are a transport faction. And I bet they'll be open tops, and I bet they'll be assault ramp transports. So can we, in good conscience, not put Harlequins like up at the top of good? I think so. Get up there. You go hang out with your orc friends. They're just Drukhari with extra steps, right? So it's going to be the same faction. Drukhari easy mode? Sure. Whatever. Who cares? Let's go. Throw them up there. Harlequins easy mode too. The other thing about Harlequins, chat, is that if past is precedent, Games Workshop will fuck them up super bad somehow. Because GW has never been able to get Harlequins right. Harlequins spent the majority of both 8th and 9th edition as the highest performing faction. They were the best faction in the game for almost like 2 full editions. They're just so hard to play that like nobody actually grabs them. So they don't get like the tone down that they, well, until Arcs of Omen, they didn't get like the nerf bat that they deserved because there was only a couple players who could do that well with them, but when those players showed up, they were basically impossible to beat. Unless you got randomly diced. They were insane. Yeah. Death Shred Terminators with rapid ingress? That's also good, chat. Hell yeah. That is tasty. Oh, I'm excited for the Death Guard article tomorrow. This is getting me all pumped for the Death Guard article. I'm also... I mean, I think most of the factions that we haven't seen yet are interesting. But the Death Guard, Tau... I want to see the Tau article. That's another faction that they perennially can't get right. And the Psychic factions. We want to see how the Psychic factions work. Those are the ones I'm very excited about. Tau and bad. Let's put Tau bottom meh. I don't know. Tau are a transport faction though, chat. Like, what if Fish of Fury is back? No, I'm calling it now. Tau are gonna be fine. They're gonna be like here. Tau are gonna get breacher teams are gonna be like ludicrous, and because of the new transport rules, you get the move and then disembark strat on everything all the time. And so like it's just gonna be like mass Fire Warriors. Fire Warriors are gonna be like the same stats, but they're gonna reduce their points cost for no reason, and they're gonna be really efficient. Oh, what if Devilfish... Here's what's going to happen, chat. You're going to get Fish of Fury, and the Devilfish is going to get... What's it called? Fire support? The ability that the Falcon has. Where is that thing? It's on something else, too, right? That they spoiled it. Oh, it's on the Land Fortress. It's on the Land Fortress. What's it called? It is fire support. Nailed it. Devilfish are going to get fire support. 100%. And you're going to be able to move and disembark them. So you're going to run up a Devilfish. You're going to shoot your dumb accelerated burst cannon. You're going to hit one time. And then your entire breacher team gets rerolls. And marker lights will be like... Marker lights will be judgment tokens, but you shoot them onto enemy units. So like you disembark 10 breachers with 2 marker drones. The 2 marker drones hit you, and you get +1 to hit and wound, and then you get full rerolls from the Devilfish. That's what Tau are going to do. They're going to be nuts. Baseless prognostication. There you go. Done. Easy peasy. No mention of Ynnari in the article. Honestly, I think Ynnari are going to be just an Eldar faction. I bet Ynnari are just like over here somewhere. They might be a detachment, but I imagine that Ynnari is just like, if you can, like, it's like a little box, and it's like, if you don't take Avatars of Cain or Phoenix Lords, you can take the Incarn. And it's just otherwise an Eldar subfaction. Like an Eldar list. I would be surprised if Ynnari, because they didn't spoil it in the list of factions, right? So I would be surprised if Ynnari had too many independent rules. If they get their own detachment or something, that could be weird, but honestly, I kind of doubt it. Yeah, they'll definitely just be a craft world thing, I bet. People in chat, you don't understand why we rated things so low? Well, fortunately, Chat and I had a very long and cogent discussion about each of these factions, and you can scroll back in the video and read and listen to them. Man, if that Fish of Fury tile list that I've made up off the top of my head is true, then that faction's gonna be so hype. It'd be sweet. I'd go back to them. I don't know if you can see it. You for sure can't. But I have... Oh, you can right there. I have an entire shelf full of devilfish that I bought and never opened. And if Tau are good, then I'm gonna be psyched. That's gonna be choice. Delicious. All right, chat. Inky was in on the conversation too, and that's why everything that we've said today is entirely correct, because Inky weighed in and she has insider knowledge. She's breaking her NDA. She doesn't care so much because she can't be sued because she's a cat. So she is totally fine with telling us exactly the power level of every single one of the factions in Warhammer 40k 10th edition, and that's what she's done. It'll be the first time Fish of Fury was good since 4th? Fish of Fury has been okay in 9th edition. I won't say it's good, but when the Codex came out, when 9th Ed Tau came out and you could play anything you wanted and win because it was really, really dumb, Fish of Fury was unironically sweet. GW would sue a cat. They would. They're petty like that. All right, chat. I guess we did put all Eldar at the top. I didn't even notice that. But it's because Eldar, I mean, the Eldar article that was spoiled today is like wildly ridiculous. That Ynnari's probably in the same faction, and all of the other Eldar in the super faction are like melee transport lists. And it looks like melee transport lists are going to be ridiculous. So, I mean, it is what it is. That's what our basic prognostication says. Yeah, Games Workshop. I bet Games Workshop has more of a grasp of the power level of stuff than we give them credit for. But I think that I imagine, because their design team is overworked and underpaid, I imagine that they just like, they know stuff, like some stuff is better than other stuff, but they don't have the time to fix it. Because sometimes finding an appropriate fix for something is like a long and involved process, and it involves you going through multiple permutations of something. And if the design team, makes like whatever, like $25,000 a year or something, then and has to do 20 factions at a time, then I don't know if they have as much of an opportunity to do so. I will blame the corporate overlords as often as I can, for sure. What in the faction focus makes Eldar S tier? Well, fortunately, I released a video like 3 hours ago that you can watch, and discusses the faction focus in detail, and you can watch that video. Fortunately, yeah, I do think that, and I have another video that I will have later this week, chat. It might even be today. It's recorded and I have to edit it, but I do talk about some of the reasons that I think 10th edition is going to be good, and I think one of them is that, a little bit of a preview for you. In the 9th edition, they've totally changed their philosophy. Back in the day, Games Workshop was so against balancing that they would take years to do it, or they just wouldn't do it at all, and codexes became like literally totally outdated and unplayable within the new rules, and it was a terrible mess. In 9th edition, they threw that whole philosophy out, and they just started updating things periodically, and we got to the point where the game was incredibly strong. And I think that assuming that philosophy carries to 10th, which I would be shocked if it didn't, then I think 10th edition is going to be more balanced than we've ever seen, just because of the fact that things will release overpowered for the reasons that we just discussed, but then be balanced, actively. They will actually change things near release, hopefully. Cross my fingers. I hope that becomes the case. If it does, then it's going to be amazing. 10th edition is going to be great. All right, chat. That's all I have to say about this totally legit faction tier list that is based on only the finest stats and logic available. This is mathematically perfect faction tier list for 10th edition Warhammer 40,000. It kind of looks like the 9th edition tier list, now that I'm looking at it. Well, that's fun. It's actually pretty close. This is interesting. So maybe nothing will change in the new edition. Anyway, I'm going to be live on Twitch tomorrow and on Thursday at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. So please come hang out with me. Otherwise, watch my faction review article for Eldar that came out earlier today. I hope I'll have another video out later today as well, and I'll continue to have tons of videos out for the rest of the week. So lots of 40k content happening. It's good stuff, and I'm going to show my devilfish close up. Oh, I was in my face cam that whole time. You want to see my devilfish collection? Usually you have to buy me dinner first. There they are. There's my devilfishes. They're next to the Panda board game and a bunch of demons that I never assembled, and the MCP core set, and there's a kill team box. That's more Tau. That's a Pathfinder box. That's a Pathfinder unit that I was going to put in my Tau army and never did. There's Harry Dan up there. He's hanging out. Yeah, that's my shelf. Got a little shelf review. All right, that's it. We're done doing close-ups, chat. Here's my face. I will see you later. So, yeah, please come hang out on Twitch when I stream tomorrow. So, other than that, goodbye, everybody.